An American man named Stanley Milgram once conducted an experiment. The experiment tested whether it was possible to deliver a letter from where he lived in Kansas to a complete stranger on the other side of the United States. He had only two pieces of information: the target person's name and the place in which they lived, Boston. The rules of the experiment were simple. Stanley chose one person who he thought might have a better chance at knowing the target and passed the letter on to them. This was then repeated with the next person. They would choose someone they knew that they thought might have a better chance at finding the target. This would theoretically be repeated until the letter reached the target person. Surprisingly, this worked, and after only 6 exchanges of the letter, it reached its target in Boston. How was it possible for the letter to have reached a complete stranger in only 6 steps? We attempted this ourselves by trying to get a letter from myself to a friend Luke, starting by giving the letter to a non-mutual friend and seeing how long it takes to return back to Luke. Luke managed to receive the letter after 5 people had passed it on, so just 6 connections. In order to see how this was possible, we need to represent the situation in terms of something called a graph. Let's say there's a child called Billy. Billy has 3 close friends, so let's put lines between them and Billy to represent that they are close friends. Now each of Billy's close friends has 2 other close friends of their own, so let's add those connections and the graph gets bigger. This way of representing connections between different things is what we call a graph. So let's try and use a graph to explain the letter experiment. Let's say we have Stanley, who knows 100 people personally, and each of those people know 100 people personally. Due to the nature of graphs, we can see that already Stanley's at most 2 friends away from 10,000 people. This makes it very easy to see why the number of exchanges of the letter was only 6. What's happening here mathematically is we're looking for the average number of connections between any 2 vertices on the graph, where these vertices are simply people. It turns out this average number of connections is given by this formula. Let's try and look at a social network like Facebook. Like before, all users of a social network can be represented as a graph of some kind. So we can expect similar results as with the letter experiment. The average Facebook user has about 140 friends, and there are about 2.13 billion active Facebook users. If we plug these values into that formula that we saw before, we can get the average number of connections between any 2 users is about 4.3. So it turns out you should be about 4 Facebook friends away from me, Gordon Ramsay, or even Barack Obama. We can even check this works for other social networks like Twitter. Again, our friend Luke is followed by his school friend Jed, who is followed by Eve, who is followed by Beth, who is followed by a YouTuber called Pro Syndicate, who is followed by another YouTuber called iJustine, who is then finally followed by Barack Obama himself. So you might be closer to someone than you think.